When a single dad noticed a young cashier's hands shaking at the checkout, he asked a simple question. He thought she'd just say she was nervous, but her answer left him absolutely speechless. It was late evening when Mark, a single father of two, walked into the small neighborhood grocery store. His work shirt was still tucked in, sleeves rolled halfway up his arms, a sign of a long day at the warehouse. His mind was tired, but his heart was focused on one thing: getting home to his kids, who were waiting eagerly for dinner. With practiced efficiency, he moved through the aisles, tossing in bread, milk, pasta, and a pack of apples, simple essentials that stretched just enough to feed 3 mouths without breaking the budget. As he reached the checkout, he joined the short line, rubbing his tired eyes. That's when he noticed her, the cashier at the counter. She couldn't have been more than 21 or 22, her face pale under the harsh fluorescent lights. Her dark hair was tied back loosely, a few strands falling across her face as she moved hurriedly. At first, she seemed like any other tired worker at the end of a long shift, but then Mark noticed something that made him pause. Her hands were trembling. Not just a slight shake, but a noticeable tremor that made the coins slip from her grasp. They clattered loudly on the counter, rolling toward the edge, and she scrambled to catch them, her cheeks flushing with embarrassment. She forced a smile at the customer ahead of Mark, apologizing under her breath. Mark's eyes softened. He knew the look, exhaustion mixed with quiet struggle. He'd lived it himself in the years after his wife passed, juggling work and fatherhood, wondering how much longer he could hold everything together. When it was finally his turn, he placed his basket on the conveyor belt slowly, giving her time. She scanned the items, her hands still unsteady, her lips pressed tight in concentration. Mark leaned forward slightly, his voice gentle but concerned. "Are you okay?" he asked. The question made her blink quickly, as though she hadn't expected anyone to notice. Her hands shook again, another coin slipping from her palm. Mark caught it before it fell. He offered it back to her with a small, reassuring smile and added softly, "Why are your hands shaking?" In that moment, the busy store seemed to quiet. The girl's eyes flickered up to his, uncertain, as though deciding whether to keep her pain hidden or let it spill out. For a moment, the young cashier froze, her fingers hovering above the register keys. She looked down quickly, as though ashamed of the very question. "I'm fine," she murmured, forcing a tight smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. But Mark had raised 2 kids, and he knew when someone was putting on a brave face. He waited, patient and kind, giving her space. Finally, her voice wavered. "It's just. I haven't eaten much today. Rent's due tomorrow, and I've been picking up double shifts. Coffee's been keeping me going, but," she trailed off, her trembling hand speaking the truth she didn't want to say out loud. Mark's chest tightened. He remembered nights when he, too, had skipped meals so his children could eat, hiding his hunger behind a smile. He remembered standing at registers like this, praying his card wouldn't decline. The ache in her words wasn't foreign, it was a mirror of the struggles he once knew too well. "You can't keep running on empty," Mark said softly, sliding his groceries closer. "You'll burn yourself out." The girl blinked at him, surprised that a stranger cared enough to say something real. Customers usually looked through her, irritated if she made a mistake. But here was this tired father, speaking with a sincerity she hadn't felt in months. She hesitated before whispering, "It's just, if I don't keep working, I don't know how I'll make it. I can't afford to slow down." Her words were barely audible, but the weight behind them was heavy. Mark didn't push further. He could see the vulnerability in her eyes, the fight to hold herself together. Instead, he smiled gently, handing her the coin he had caught earlier. "Then let me tell you something," he said, his voice steady but kind. "Even the strongest people need to take care of themselves. I used to think I could carry everything alone, too. But life has a way of reminding us, we all need help sometimes." Her eyes softened, her shoulders dropping slightly as though the simple acknowledgement lifted a fraction of the burden she carried. For the first time in her shift, she felt seen. The beep of the scanner filled the silence, but the air between them had shifted. Mark reached for his wallet as the last of his groceries slid into the bag, but his attention never left the cashier. Her hand still trembled as she handed him the receipt, though now her expression carried a mix of embarrassment and gratitude. She whispered, "Thank you, for asking." Mark paused, looking into her tired eyes. "What's your name?" he asked gently. "Emily," she replied, her voice fragile. "Well, Emily," he said with a soft smile, "you remind me of someone." He thought of his late wife, who had once worked long shifts at a diner to help make ends meet. She, too, had pushed herself past exhaustion, never letting anyone see the weight she carried. His heart ached at the memory, but it also gave him clarity. Reaching into his wallet, Mark hesitated. He didn't have much, raising 2 kids on a single income meant every dollar mattered. But he remembered the promise he had made to himself years ago, that if he ever had the chance to be the helping hand he once needed, he would take it. Sliding a folded bill across the counter, he said, "Get yourself a proper meal tonight. Please. Not coffee, not scraps, something that fills you up." Emily's eyes widened. She shook her head quickly, pushing the money back toward him. "No, I can't accept this. You have kids, you need it more than I do." Mark chuckled softly, shaking his head. "I've been where you are. I know what hunger feels like, what fear of tomorrow does to you. But tonight, I want you to eat without worrying. Think of it as, from one parent to someone who could use a little kindness." Her lip quivered, and for a moment, she looked as though she might break into tears right there at the register. Customers behind Mark began shifting impatiently, but he didn't care. His words had landed, and he could see it in her expression, the disbelief that someone would care enough to notice her struggle, let alone offer help. She finally whispered, "You don't even know me, why would you do this?" Mark's reply was simple but powerful, "Because someone once did the same for me. And it saved me." Emily pressed the bill to her chest, her hands still shaking, but now it wasn't just from exhaustion. It was from the flood of emotion, the strange and beautiful weight of being seen, valued, and cared for. As Mark gathered his grocery bags, Emily stood frozen behind the counter, clutching the folded bill as if it were both fragile and precious. The store buzzed with the noise of late-evening shoppers, but in her mind, everything had gone quiet. For the first time in weeks, she felt as though the crushing weight on her chest had eased, if only a little. Mark offered her one last smile before turning toward the exit. Emily hesitated, her instincts warring inside her. Should she just let him walk away? He had already done more than enough. Yet something inside urged her not to let the moment end without saying what she truly felt. "Wait," she called out, her voice cracking slightly. Mark stopped and turned, his expression warm and patient, as though he knew she needed to speak. Emily stepped out from behind the register, ignoring the annoyed huffs of the next customer in line. Her apron hung loose on her thin frame, and her cheeks flushed red. "You don't understand," she began, her voice trembling. "This job, it's the only thing keeping me afloat right now. My mom's sick, the bills keep piling up, and her words caught in her throat, the dam of silence she had kept for so long finally breaking. Mark set his grocery bags down and listened, really listened. His eyes didn't hold pity, just quiet empathy. "You don't have to carry all of that alone," he said softly. "I know it feels like the world doesn't notice, but people do. Sometimes, all it takes is letting someone in." Emily's eyes brimmed with tears she tried desperately to hold back. "I've felt invisible for so long," she whispered. "Like no one would even care if I just disappeared. And then you asked me one simple question," her grip tightened on the bill. "You reminded me that I still matter." Mark placed a gentle hand on her shoulder, the gesture steady and reassuring. "You matter more than you know. And you're stronger than you think. Just don't give up, your story isn't finished yet." The sincerity in his voice struck her like sunlight breaking through storm clouds. For the first time in months, Emily felt a fragile but undeniable spark of hope. As Mark picked up his bags again, Emily stood taller behind the counter. The tremble in her hands hadn't disappeared completely, but now it carried something new. The strength to keep going. The days that followed felt different for Emily. The struggles didn't magically vanish, the bills still came, her mother's health still demanded constant care, but the crushing loneliness she once carried had eased. Mark's words echoed in her heart every time she clocked in for her shift, "Your story isn't finished yet." 1 week later, Emily spotted Mark again. He was with his 2 kids this time, a boy and a girl who giggled as they helped him load groceries onto the belt. Emily felt her chest tighten with emotion. This was the man who had unknowingly breathed life back into her spirit. When Mark looked up and recognized her, his smile was genuine, warm. "Hey, Emily," he said, remembering her name without hesitation. That small detail alone made her throat tighten. I wanted to thank you," Emily said softly as she scanned the items. Her voice was steadier now, her hands less shaky. "That night, you gave me more than just a tip. You reminded me I wasn't invisible." Mark's children looked at her curiously, but his gaze stayed steady. "I'm glad," he replied. "Never forget, you matter. And sometimes, the hardest storms prepare us for brighter days." As Emily handed him the receipt, she felt something shift deep inside. For the first time in months, she believed that maybe, just maybe, the road ahead could lead somewhere better. That night, walking home with tired feet and a weary body, Emily caught herself smiling. It wasn't because her life was suddenly perfect, it wasn't. It was because someone had seen her, truly seen her, and reminded her of her worth. And in that simple truth, she found strength. Kindness had the power to change everything. Sometimes, it only takes noticing someone's quiet struggle, and asking a simple question, to change a life. Because kindness, once sparked, spreads further than we can ever imagine.